Yeah, thanks.
Actually, I'm really sad that I moved because I enjoyed living across the street from them. But yeah, Mark,
Yeah, Glenn and Leslie were good neighbors. We were sorry to see him go. If they ever want to come back to the, you had to upgrade and move to a better part of town, I guess, out in the countryside. Yeah, right. So good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I think most of you in the room have met me before. I'm a E-Town Rotarian, but I also serve as the Deputy Chief and Treasurer for the Elizabethtown Fire Department. So just a little bit of an update we're going to share with you today. Hopefully some things maybe you didn't know about the fire company, a little bit how we operate, some things we do for the community, and just a little bit of background on us to help you understand what we do. So obviously, our primary mission is our service to the community. We cover about 27 square miles. We cover 4 municipalities as our primary area. So all of Elizabethtown Borough, obviously, parts of West Donegal Township, Mountjoy Township, and also Conewago Township in Dauphin County. That covers about 8,000 households and about, now over $1 billion worth of property within those 27 square miles. We also help serve our neighbors. It's a mutual aid concept. So if there's a larger incident, fire, more intense rescue, we help our neighbors. The same thing, they do the same thing for us. So if anybody's ever been, there's a public version of the Lancaster County WebCAD. You can always go out there and kind of see what's going on. If it's a fire, you may see 8 or 10 units. And that's not necessarily because of the size of the fire. That's just sometimes a precautionary measure to make sure there's enough resources there, depending what may happen, that there's enough manpower to do that. And sometimes, too, it's for manpower. All the fire companies around us, with the exception of Lancaster City and Manheim Township, are still all volunteer. So especially during the day, we're waiting on volunteers to either be available, maybe they're off that day, or even in some cases leave their job to come to the fire station to serve their community. In 2004, we had 758 calls, 2 a day. Doesn't necessarily seem like a lot, but again, when it's all served by volunteers, it's a huge commitment they make to the community. And that's 758. The stats aren't yet out for the county, but historically we've been in the top 3 to the top 5 of the busiest volunteer stations in the entire county. Obviously, we do a lot of things. Everybody thinks of the fire company and fires. It goes beyond that. Vehicle accidents, fire alarms, rescuing people, animals, ducks in storm drains, trees down across the roadway. Pretty much if something happens that isn't going right, the fire company gets called to try and come help remedy the problem. Something that's unique, at least in our area, to Elizabethtown, is we have a live-in program. And what that means is we have private dormitory-style rooms that up to 10 people can actually live there at the fire station. Typically, it's usually younger individuals that are at a phase in their life that they're not yet married, out on their own. We even have some college students that will choose to stay at the firehouse, defer the cost of room and board. In exchange, they give service to the community through the fire company, and they have a place to live. So a little bit more about the volunteers. Training is really important to us. We want to hone our skills and make sure we have the training that we need when somebody calls 911. We want to show up ready to help fix whatever the problem may be. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, they are providing a significant sacrifice of their time to serve the community and the department. Often that's taking time away from a job that pays the bills, other life responsibilities, or times with family and friends. Currently, we have about 30 active volunteer firefighters, as well as 2 fire police officers. It's important to note, though, that is on the decline. That is down about 15 in the last 5 years. So the volunteer model is beginning to feel some strain on what it's able to provide to the community. We do throughout the year about 3,000 man hours worth of training that can be going to, if you ever driven down 283, the Lancaster County Training Center near the Salunga exit is an area that we use frequently. New members may go there for their first part of their training. And then we also do some training each Monday night, either at our station or we'll go to the training center or go to Cocker's, do some simulated vehicle rescue scenarios, that type of thing. How many hours, we'll make this a little interactive, some questions. How many hours do you think it would take to certify a brand new member that would join the fire company just to kind of get their fire suppression and rescue classes? How many hours do you think they would have to invest?
168.
He knows what he's talking about. Yeah. 168 is kind of your basic fire. If we add in things like the vehicle rescue and some other things, it can be as high as 250. But equate that to the amount of time that you have. Who has 250 extra hours in their life to commit to the training? Not many. And that's why we're feeling the strain to attract new members, because you need to do all this training before you can do anything. And with other options in life, fire company is one that just unfortunately is not as high in the list as it might have been in the past. And some of that's generational. As we see, some members came because maybe their father, their uncle, their grandfather was part of the fire company. It was kind of a family legacy. And some of that's beginning to die off. You know, other commitments such as life.
Mark, you know, I think back to my younger days and the volunteer firefighters that I knew, who they didn't do a whole lot. I mean, this is Southern County. They didn't do a whole lot of training. They signed up at the firehouse and they got a set of turnout gear and they jumped on the back of the truck. At what point did this? Okay, we've got to be firefighter number 1 or whatever.
Yep.
When did that happen?
A lot of that's been pushed down by the Commonwealth through the State Fire Commissioner's office. The rules of even the age has prevented a lot of things that even younger members at the age of 12, 14 in the past, you could go become a member of the fire company. Now you can't be out on public roadways. I mean, there's a lot of things being pushed down to us through the Commonwealth and other laws that really make it difficult to get some of the younger folks in. And what that does is it delays their interest, and by the time they're 16 or 18, you know, might have moved on to boyfriends, girlfriends, sports, you know, got tied up in other things in life. And some of it's funding too. I mean, a lot of our state grant is tied to a level of funding, so we have to have people trained at a certain level to be eligible for a lot of the grants and stuff we can apply for. So we continue to do as much as we can through recruitment and retention. We have a whole committee dedicated to that. You know, not only are we trying to recruit, but we're also trying to retain our members. So recruitment, we're getting involved through the college and the high school, career days and other events to help spread the word about what we are and what we do, to gain some interest. Internally, to help retain members, we do things like sporting events. We may go to a Senators game. We have plans here in February to go to a hockey game for the Hershey Bears. We have a tuition assistance program, which has been very successful with some of our college students that not only could they live at the station for free, they can apply for some money to go towards their tuition. We'll have things like holiday dinners and banquets to also help improve and create an atmosphere of cohesiveness in the department. As I mentioned, the decline, it is a decline though, unfortunately, in the active members. We closely monitor the average number of people we're getting and just the overall total number of active folks. And the live-in program and our duty crew program does help, you know, decrease the response times to the community. So another area that's important to us that we spend some time is in fire prevention. You know, we certainly, if we can prevent the call, that's the ultimate goal. So we're involved in presentations at schools, daycares, churches, We have folks that will come to the station. We'll do station tours and really help educate the community and even children about the importance of safety in the home. Just some stats across the United States. There are about 1.4 million fires every year. Causes over 3,000 people to die in a fire-related death. Just in the last 95 seconds, there was one fire reported somewhere in the country, and that continues every 95 seconds throughout the day. 8 people on average are dying every day as a result of a home fire, and 24% of those occurred. Only 24% of fires occur in homes, but 80% of the deaths are in the home. So with the home fires being the most prevalent, and I'll get into it here in a little bit, we started a smoke detector program with the help of Rotary to help make sure our homes and our community are protected. Beyond like the fire prevention events, we try to remain active in the community. So we're out participating in things like the National Night Out. We had some folks out this year doing trick-or-treat at the fire station as children came by the station. We'll do some rescue and training demos, whether at the fair. In the past, we've done some of the Prom Promise events with the high school, where we do a simulated vehicle rescue scenario. And this year, we got cut a little short. We only participated on one of the Sundays because you guys sold out of trees, but we support Rotary in the Christmas tree sale at Giant as well. And as I started to mention a little bit earlier, smoke detectors are something that are very important to us, and we want to make sure every home has one because they do help save lives. About 2012, 2013 was the first year that we partnered with Rotary. You all made a donation to help fund the purchase of the smoke detectors. And we were able to actually purchase them through B&G Lumber at cost to help make it go a little bit further. Since 2012, we have installed 352 detectors in approximately 105 homes. So that's 100 plus homes in our community that did not have smoke detectors in the past. And this is important to us because we categorize through data through the U.S. Fire Administration that older adults, children's under 5, disabled folks, and persons living below the poverty level are 3 to 4 more times likely to be killed in a fire than someone else. And if you look at the statistics of E-Town, the greater E-Town area within those categories, 40% of our population falls within one of those 4 categories. So helping to educate the community that we have them available, and it increases their chances of surviving by over 60%. We want to make sure that every home has one so they can be protected in the unlikely and unfortunate event of a fire in their home. So a little bit about the financial end of the fire company. You can't have the treasurer come up and not talk about finances, right? Anybody want to take a guess? And this would just be the operating costs. What does it take to operate the fire company a year? It doesn't carry capital expenses like buying new fire trucks. How much do you think it would cost to run a fire company a year? Deb can't answer because she sees our budget. Yeah, John sees it too. Anybody have an idea?
1.3.
Not quite. If you want to write a check for the difference, I'll talk to you afterwards. Now, just the operational components, the day-to-day, $300,000 a year. Now you layer on the cost of buying new vehicles, exponentially grows. So we just recently placed an order, and the lead time right now on fire trucks by the year takes 3 years to get a fire truck from the time you order. Some of that's just the spillover supply chain issues coming out of COVID. $2.3 million for a ladder truck. And it takes a lot of fundraising and partnerships with the municipalities to make that happen. But we do, each year, we do have our Brown Plus works with us. They actually do our annual audit every year, so we're working with their team. And then we share that information as well as our budgets with all the municipalities. So there's full disclosure as to where the fire company is spending their money. And then the municipalities have been very generous. We are at the point that they are funding pretty much nearly all of the operating expenses of the fire company. So really what's left is the capital costs. So saving for the replacement of a fire engine that needs to happen every 12 to 15 years. The HVAC unit that goes out on the roof, or just improvements to the building. That's what we still fundraise for, and that's where we need the support of the community through things like our fund drive, food truck events, etc., to really help support that. I can't diminish the value, though, of what the volunteers provide to the community. You know, those volunteers are saving $1.5 to $2 million a year of cost to the community by not paying salary and benefits. So the longer that we can continue to sustain the volunteer model, the better off it's going to be for the community collectively as a whole. Speaking of our fund drive, I won't put anybody on the spot and ask if you mailed in your check yet, but if you didn't, don't forget about us. What do you think the response rate might be to the fund drive mailer that we send out each fall? In terms of what percentage of people send a donation back? 20? Any other guesses? 50? Stanley? 90? Whew, I wish. 14%. 14% of folks respond to the fund drive. And some of that is, we try and hypothesize, why that may be, because it is declining. It was as high as 18% just a few years ago. Certainly here over the last few years, personal budgets and spending has gotten extremely tight, and folks that may have contributed in the past may no longer be able to do so. However, some folks moving into our area may not be completely familiar with how the fire model works in this area. If you can move into this area from places like Maryland, New Jersey, New York, they're all paid fire departments in those areas, generally speaking. Those are all tax-funded systems, so they don't have a contribution or solicitation for contribution that might be happening. So some of it's just educating the public on what we do. So that's all I had prepared, but I am more than happy to answer any questions you may all have.
Mark, I think you alluded to the fact that it covers some areas partially. Is West Donegal one of those?
Yeah, we have about half of West Donegal Township, pretty much the part on the northern side of Bainbridge Road. And then Reams Fire Company has the lower.
Why is it split? It's confusing, like if you're a resident.
Yeah, it's geography. It's all based on where the closest fire station is to that area. So that portion, specifically to West Donegal Township, Reams Fire Company is just a little bit closer. So they base it on, when seconds count or minutes count to get there, they want the closest available company. And they usually try and split it, on a major road or something that makes it a little bit easier, that doesn't get too scientific on the boundaries. But the same with Mountjoy Township. They're covered by 4 fire companies. And some of that's just how big Mountjoy Township is and where all the geography is.
West Donegal's covered by 3.
Oh, true, yeah.
The northern half is Elizabethtown Fire, the southern half is Reams, and about a 10% section over against North Township is covered by Bainbridge Fire. So Mountjoy Township supports 4 fire departments, West Donegal supports 3.
Right.
Mountjoy Township has no fire department within our
Within
town.
the boundaries,
Yeah. No, but and I can't I've been with the fire company 16, 17 years. And over that time, I would say the partnership with the municipalities has definitely grown. It started with Mountjoy Township with a fire tax, West Donegal Township with a fire tax. Elizabethtown Borough didn't do a tax; they just built it into the general fund. But as I said, it's fully funded from an operational standpoint. It's just the cost of the capital is so big. They're taking steps to get there, But until we're 100% of the way there, we still need the support of the community. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mark. So what you're saying that most of the fire stations around this area are volunteer?
Yeah.
So what differentiates when you start? When you start getting funds from the city?
What do you mean? What difference?
As far as having
like a paid staffing?
Funded or police, or I'm sorry, firemen who are salary.
Right. So Lancaster City has been a paid career staff for as long as I can remember. Manheim Township, which just north of Lancaster City, they kind of stepped into it in different phases. They started with part-time firemen during the critical times of day when the volunteers generally weren't available. They're now fully paid. And that took probably about a 6 to 8 year process till that was fully implemented. I would say up in our area, I mean, the northwest corner of Lancaster County tends to be very busy. Not just E-Town, all the fire companies in the area have a lot of calls. Fairly densely populated to some extent. We have a lot of roadways and highways that create a lot of vehicle accidents. But to answer your question of when that would come, I don't have a magic 8 ball to be able to shake and say I have a definitive date, but I think a lot of it's going to depend on how long the volunteer can sustain it enough that they're continuing to make the response to the calls that are adequate in terms of times of response. I think hypothetically, I mean, in our area, I think what it would start with is in phases, similar to what Manheim Township did, where maybe there's a paid individual just to drive the fire truck during the day when most people were at work, and then it might move into at least a crew of 3 or 4 people that are staffing during the day, and then a crew 24 hours. That it's something that we would probably grow into versus flipping a switch and it's automatically 100% to fully staffed and career paid. John.
I know some of your members are actual paid firefighters in the city. How many do you have?
I don't have I'd have to go through my head and try and count them all. There'd be about 5 or 6. We have one, Lebanon City, Pennsylvania, Frederick, Maryland, 2 in Montgomery County, Maryland, one that just got hired in Reading or near Reading City.
So they go there, they do their, whatever their tour is.
24 usually on, 72 hours off, and then, yeah.
Come back and live in the community. And
correct.
I know Reeves has several.
Yep.
Also the same way.
Yep.
They're full-time paid firefighters in an urban setting, but then come home and live in the community and do volunteer.
Right.
Those guys, I really gotta give them props.
Yeah.
Because they're not only putting their life on the line at the job, they're putting their life on the line.
Yeah, and that's something we're blessed with their willingness to continue to do, but I would say that as time goes by, that may not always be possible because they have to look at it. It's a high-risk job, and if they get hurt doing a volunteer job and they can no longer work their full-time job that pays the bills, that'd be a really, really bad spot for them to be in and their family. Deb.
Mark, you had said about the ladder truck costing 2.1. I remember when I first started supervisor, I think they were like 1.1 or something. That was 13 years ago. But it's not 2.1 for a ladder truck here and 2.1 here and 2. We're not surrounded by ladder trucks.
No.
How do you guys all mesh?
Yeah, so it's a good point. We talked about mutual aid, where if there's a larger event, there'll be multiple companies from other agencies coming in. Same type of thing on equipment and apparatus and vehicles. Pretty much every station will have a fire engine, that can pump water, has hose, can go put a fire out. Your specialty pieces, so like a rescue, that would have the tools for crashes, rescuing people, the aerial truck, a ladder truck, tankers, are all kind of geographically spaced out. So Elizabethtown doesn't have a tanker because in the borough we have primarily hydrants. But our neighboring companies like Reams, Maytown, Mastersonville, Bainbridge all have tankers. So if we need something like that, they come. Same thing in this area. E-Town and Mount Joy are really the only 2 that have ladder trucks. So we go further with that piece to help people out. Yes, sir.
I've lived in Los Angeles for 21 years of my life. so few fires. I can probably count on one hand. Small fires, wet water coming through the ceiling, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's otherwise it's well covered and connected, I'm sure, to the surrounding fire company.
Yep. Yeah, they just had a small fire a few weeks ago in James Buchanan. The fire wasn't that significant, but the water damage was pretty significant. There's a lot of residents in James Buchanan displaced here for a few months while they get that all restored. But the good thing is nobody was hurt or killed in the incident.
You do a boot drop? I can't remember if I ever.
We'll do one. So we do a food truck event usually twice a year. We'll have a boot drop there at that event, but we don't necessarily just put one out randomly or stand at the square or the lights.
Towns,
Mhm.
you know, whatever, like on a holiday, for example.
Sure.
Usually, and you know, you're always willing. 14% is like I was shocked.
Yeah.
Honestly, that maybe you get in front of people more.
Right.
Than you'd be willing to put something in the booth.
Sure. No, thanks for the idea. Barry.
So you mentioned the Commonwealth and rules, regulations, and all that rhetoric. Clearly, you guys are in their face, and guys, you're making it impossible for us to get people because it's simply the demand is too high. Are they hearing you? Is there any discussions? Do you understand my question?
I do. We've been unsuccessful in those conversations. I'll leave it at that.
I can remember boot driving at the square, but I think you can't do that anymore, right?
I don't know why not.
I think it's a thing where a lot of people are doing
We
it.
probably need a solicit.
I think like
just a
5 or 7
permit.
years ago, somebody got hit or something, and now they don't make still do it. Can't build. Do they? I mean, they should.
Yeah.
That's when I went through, I drove down to my house. I would love to have you go on through the square.
Throw money. We'll bring one next year to the tree sales. Maybe we can fill it up. If they got there and can't buy a tree, they can just put the money they were going to spend in our boot.
And I think Mark makes a really good point with volunteers and donations. As you know, we did create MESA for the Emergency Services Authority for the ambulance. And you know, that could wind up the same way with fire. So we really do need to support them. And also not just financially, but emotional support as well. Because these guys see things that normal, regular, everyday citizens don't see, just like the animals.
Yeah, and even volunteers. I mean, I know many of us in our room, in this room, we might have been, we're past our prime. Maybe that we're soon ready to keep running into burning buildings and doing things like that. But there's always other non-fire related things that we can always use folks to help do. Whether it's as simple as maybe help take out the trash, vacuum up the lounge, clean up the kitchen, whatever the case may be. If you have some type of administrative talent, you know, helping to file paperwork, enter information into the computer. So we always throw that out there. So don't always feel like, well, I'm too far past the ability to do anything physical. We could find something else for you to do. So if you ever have interest, you can find me, and we'll try and find you something to do. Well, I'll talk to you about the training you're going to have to do first, and then you might change. She, funny story about Deb's driving. She actually almost ran the fire truck off the road. On your road. We were coming back from a call on the turnpike, and she comes whipping around the corner. I might be exaggerating slightly. Dave. Not necessarily written down, but if you want to email me or call me sometime, I'm happy to go over that with you or anybody else that would have interest.
Well, along that same line, if there's like a day of like spring cleaning or something like that we could do as a club.
Yeah. I mean, Glenn, I don't want to tell his secrets, but Glenn's been a huge asset. He's come down and helped us do a couple things. He has. Yeah, absolutely. It's the truth.
Well, it isn't. I didn't.
Well, he purposely didn't. He sent his people. he helped organize it. But thank you so much for the time. I appreciate the opportunity to get up here and give you an update. It's been, I looked back, I think the last time was like 2020 that we actually gave you guys an update. So thanks for having me back. Stanley.
I don't know, in my younger days, I wasn't a volunteer, but the Reed Fire Company, I was able to ride along one day. I don't know if that was legal or not.
Thanks to the state and our insurance, there's a lot of things we can't ride on the back of the fire truck like you see in the movies anymore either. Okay. Thank you all.